We'll have an invocation by Mr. Thompson, and our pledge will be led by Mrs. Maddox.
Heavenly Father, we come to you thanking you for the day you protect and serve for our safety. We ask a special thought as we conduct the
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we do have a quorum, and Mr. Newhouse is out, and Mr. Bullock, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Announcements, Mrs. Parrish.
I have two announcements. I just wanted to remind the Planning Commission that there is no Planning Commission meeting in November beyond this one. And then the second item is December 5th. We're teeing up to have the 3 S-Power special use cases that evening. We're going to offer up to the Planning Commissioners prior to that meeting that if you wish to come in and talk about the staff report and get a review of it, we'll make time available to do that probably on Monday and Tuesday prior to the Planning Commission. So you'll be receiving the report about a week prior to that, but it will be a long report, and there are 3 cases. We wanted to go ahead and offer you the opportunity to review the staff reports with us prior to the public hearing.
And the public hearing will be held when?
December the 5th.
Do any of you have any questions for Mrs. Parrish on this? Are you okay? All right. We'll go on to the next item. How about board members? Members, do you all have any items that you would like to bring up at this time? Okay. All right. Now we come to the review and approval of minutes of October the 17th, 2018.
I move to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. All right. Are there any questions that you have on the minutes? If not, all those in favor of the motion make it known by saying aye. Aye. The machine's not working yet, is it? Okay. Okay. Do we have any unfinished business that needs to be brought to us, Mrs. Parrish?
No.
All right. Thank you. So we'll move on to the public hearings, and we'll move into SUP 180009 DMS Properties LLC. Mrs. Parrish, would you review to the audience and to the Planning Commission the procedure, please?
Yes, ma'am. The public hearing will begin this evening with a staff presentation. Following the staff presentation, the applicant will have an opportunity to speak. The applicant will have 10 minutes. Following the applicant's presentation, anybody that wishes to speak from the public may do so. You have 3 minutes to speak if you're representing yourself. If you are representing a group, please let us know up front and you will have 5 minutes. There is a timer on the podium that will show yellow when there is 1 minute remaining and then red when your time is up. Following the citizen comment period, the applicant will have another 5-minute period to answer questions that were raised. The Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors will hold another public hearing on this item, and it will follow those same procedures.
Thank you, Mrs. Parrish. With that, I now open the public hearing. Kim, you going to present us?
Thank you. This is a request by the applicant DMS Properties LLC for special use approval to allow for a contractor's office and shop, specifically for an excavating business to locate on the property. The property is approximately 10 acres and zoned agricultural 3. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. Here's a zoning map with the property outlined in red. You'll see the property again is zoned A3 and surrounded by other agriculturally zoned properties. Here's an aerial image. The property has 2 residential structures and several outbuildings. The house closest to Route 1, right here, will serve as the office for the business, and the storage yard will be located on the rear portion of the property. You can see there's a significant amount of existing vegetation on the perimeter of the property, approximately 50 feet in width. The only gap is here on the north side. You'll see that the closest residence from that perspective is over 630 feet away. And then the closest residence to the rear is approximately 213 feet away, and that distance is actually measured from the buffer. Here is the applicant's generalized development plan. As I noted, the proposal is to locate the office into the existing house, which is identified there with the star. The equipment and materials will be stored on the site and screened behind an 8-foot solid fence, which is identified with the red line. And a new storage building will be constructed within that fence line, which is shaded here in yellow. The Design Standards Manual requires a transitional screen be located on the property lines to buffer a more intense use to lesser intense uses, the residential uses that are existing and any future. As you can see, I've highlighted in green the existing tree lines. The only gap, as I noted on the aerial, is here on the north side. The applicant is requesting a modification to that transitional screening requirement, which is supported by staff given the 8-foot solid fence and the additional plantings here. The applicant is also requesting a modification to the dustless surface requirement that would require that the drive aisles and the parking areas and the storage yard here be paved. Given that the property is going to have heavy equipment stored on site, there's no customers coming to this site. Staff is supportive of the use of millings instead of asphalt in this instance. The existing driveway is located right here. There's also a VDOT historic roadside marker here as well. The applicant will be closing this driveway and relocating his entrance about 160 feet north of the existing driveway. This will be a VDOT commercial design entrance, which will be paved here at the right-of-way. The abandonment of the existing driveway will allow for a safe pull-off area for the existing roadside marker. Approximately 15 to 20 employees will report to this site daily. That's going to generate approximately 33 vehicle trips, which will not be a significant impact to the Route 1 corridor. Key findings in favor: the proposal is consistent with applicable goals and objectives in the comprehensive plan. The visual impacts have been mitigated with the proposed landscaping and the screened fencing. And the access and pull-off area for that historic roadside marker will be improved with the relocation of the existing entrance driveway to the north. Findings against: while that the applicant has made significant efforts to mitigate the impacts, the introduction of a commercial use in this area is not entirely keeping with the rural surroundings. However, with the findings in favor just presented, staff is recommending approval with the following conditions: that the property be developed in conformance with the generalized development plan, and that the landscaping and fencing that were identified on the GDP be maintained for the lifetime of the use, and that the site entrance be designed and constructed in accordance with VDOT requirements. This concludes my presentation. The applicant is here. He does not have a presentation. He's happy to answer any questions, and he has indicated that he is in agreement with staff's recommended conditions.
Will you go back to this site that you had up, please?
This one?
There.
Mm-hmm.
How about the turning lane?
There's no turning lane proposed.
Excuse me?
There's no turn lane proposed for the entrance. They're just relocating the entrance. It'll be widened. It'll meet commercial design standards.
Oh, okay. And you're satisfied with that?
Yes, ma'am, that meets VDOT requirements.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions? Yes.
Kimberly, I see the one sentence in here in the analysis that says that there may be a small quantity of building lumber, rebar, and PVC pipe stored on site. Are we concerned about the quantity of that, or I know it comes and goes, it's part of that type of business, but are we concerned about how much is stored there at any given time?
No, sir, and it's going to be contained in the storage yard,
Okay.
fenced, screened, and secured.
And of, I believe you said 33 employees? No, 33
33
trips,
trips, 15 to
20
20
employees. Is this business currently in operation now?
Not at this location.
Not this location, but are they currently in operation? That's how many employees they have currently?
Well, I don't know if that's the total number of
Okay.
employees, but that's the total number they're expecting to come to the site.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments
I
at this
just
time?
have a comment. I mean,
Yes.
this is not far from my house at all. And I mean, I understand that this is a rural area, but it's also the lots, they're so far away from any neighbor that I don't see it presenting a problem for anyone. And on Route 1 in that area, the traffic, really on the weekends, you know, when 95 for bailout, that's when it gets to be serious. And I would imagine a business would be working, Monday through Friday. So turning lanes may not be warranted by VDOT because, they'd be doing it mainly during the day, during Monday through Friday, where it's the weekends when Route 1 gets crazy, But in that area, I think this would be an acceptable use, given that it's far enough, all of their equipment will be far away from and hidden behind a fence. So I'm in support of this kind of business, small business. I appreciate that in this area. And I've been looking and working with staff to see about extending the primary boundary district to go all the way down to Route 1 to the, Caroline line in this area, because I'm hoping that we can get more businesses to be like that, to grow this area in this manner. So I support this.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Yes.
That actually brings up a good point. A question I was going to ask Kimberly and/or Wanda on when we have cases like this. It's right on the border of Caroline, close to it. Do we ever look at their comp plan coming up to or their future land use map? Because we have where we want our business to go or our development to go, and we want to see how it works well and fits in there. Do we ever look over to Caroline on not specifically this, but anytime we're on a border, do we look over and say, hey, what's your plan for going down Route 1? What's the overall idea there?
Yes, we do that, yes.
And I'm telling you, on the weekends, Route 1 it's being revitalized in this area. When you get off that bailout traffic, it's an opportunity for business. I'm just saying, or to grow this area. It's a good place. It's a good fit, and it's away from, more of our services and things that we need to provide on the more inside. It's a travel through. People could come spend their money and leave. I like that. So.
All right. Any other comments? Okay. Now we'll hear from the applicant. Is the applicant? Would the applicant like to speak tonight?
Only if you have questions.
Do you have questions for the applicant? Would you like to hear from the applicant? Okay. If not, Paulette, has anyone signed up?
I have 3 people. Roderick Slike, followed by Tom Looper. Would you like to speak, sir? Oh, if you wish to speak, you just step up to the
Yes.
podium.
Right at the podium there.
Podium right
beside
there,
you.
sir.
Right there. Yes, and you state your name
Roderick Slike,
and your voting district.
Berkeley.
Thank you. Continue.
Good evening. I'm the property that's adjacent to him to the left. I don't know if you can see it in the view, which we've been trying to all develop down in the rural area, Route 1 Arcadia. Pretty sure you're familiar with it. I'm on the backlash of all the accidents down there. So we've been trying to mitigate and try to clear everything out. For some time, I've always wanted this corridor to be developed because we're the last part of Spotsylvania. And the main artery of Arcadia Road is an actual great area because it's an artery that goes all the way back to Partlow and everybody. So I might be up here in a special use permit myself later, but I just want to make sure that you guys hear that I'm adjacent to him. I have no objections, and I think it's a good thing that we could develop that whole Route 1 corridor all the way to the Caroline line. If you have any, if you're familiar with Arcadia and Route 1, it's like she said, it's very, very busy. And when we go down there, we develop on the right side. I don't know if you know the old Beasley store. That's me down there. You see me running around all the time down there. So we are trying to work together as a community down there. So we have A lot of work to do, but we're trying. So I don't know if you guys have any questions for me down there, because everybody wants to know what I'm doing, and we're just trying to use the VDOT stuff and try to get, what do you call the drainage and everything right.
All right.
So that's that for me.
Thank you, sir. You,
Mr. Looper, followed by Ellen Looper.
I'm Tom Looper. We're about a quarter of a mile north of the subject property at the corner of Bear Lane and Route 1. We are for it, have no objections to it. Just wanted to state so.
thank you, sir. Anyone else, Paula? Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this case that did not sign up? Seeing no one rise. Commission members, do you have any other questions or comments at this time? All right. Then maybe entertain a motion, please.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the special use as outlined in the staff report with the conditions.
I'll second.
Oh, you need to close the.
I know.
Yeah.
All right. And at this time, I fail to close the public hearing, which I will do so. Now, does she need to make her,
Can we do it again? Okay, I'll do it again. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the special use with the conditions as outlined in the staff report.
thank you,
A second.
thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none? All in favor of the motion, make it known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign. You got that, Paulette? Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to our work session. Hello, Jacob. All right, this is for CPA 170002.
Correct. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. This evening's presentation is on a section of the transportation element of the comprehensive plan as part of our comprehensive plan update process. Specifically, tonight, we'd like to focus on bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and how we'd like to address that within the comprehensive plan going forward. This evening's work session, I come here with two main questions or proposals for the Planning Commission to consider, and we would be welcoming your feedback on. The first being a thought to potentially collapse the 2011 adopted County Trailways Master Plan into the transportation element of the comprehensive plan, so we get rid of individual standalone documents and put them all in one location for a one-stop shop, so people don't have to go fishing for different documents. There's a couple of reasons for that, and I'll try to elaborate that as we go forward. I'd also like to let you know that this is the Trailways Master Plan that was adopted in 2011. In the coming weeks, we'll also be bringing the concept to you just for a heads up for the Planning Commission of potentially doing the exact same thing with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which is another master plan document that stands on the side. But we feel, since it's all part of the county master planning process, Trailways, Infrastructure, Parks and Rec, that all these documents may be best suited within one document. So that's the first proposal before you this evening.
Excuse me, I
Yes.
got a question. Does it change the status of the comp plan?
No. How so? Timeline or?
No, authority-wise.
No, it would not. We will treat the comprehensive plan the way we always do. As a matter of fact, the way this currently works is, this technically is part of the comprehensive plan because it's adopted by reference. So what happens is, you look at the comprehensive plan, it says, for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, go look at this document. So the effect in terms of our review of this document, it's still a guiding document. It is not code. It's recommendation based. When we have special use permit and rezoning applications, we make recommendations based on the comprehensive plan consistency. None of that changes. It's the exact same.
The authority factor doesn't change.
No.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Anyone else at this time? All right.
Okay, just the second part of this, this presentation this evening, in addition to the idea of collapsing that into the comprehensive plan, is how we actually look for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure when we receive site plan applications. And this involves our design standards manual and ultimately what the frontage requirements will be. This evening, staff is proposing a corridor-specific approach rather than what's currently in the design standards manual, and I'm probably getting way ahead of myself. I don't have a lot of slides, but the design standards manual tends to be focused more on zoning and use and not necessarily on corridors. So no matter where the heck you are in the county, you could potentially be required to do a sidewalk, whether you're inside or outside the primary development boundary, simply because your use or zoning says so. So staff is looking at a corridor-specific approach, which is more focused on the primary development boundary rather than putting a sidewalk out, somewhere for a sole commercial location outside of that area. And I probably gave you half my presentation all in one slide, but it's okay. So this evening, to focus on the shift of the Trailways Master Plan into the comprehensive plan, staff proposes updating and shifting crucial elements of the 2011 Trailways Master Plan into the comprehensive plan. Staff at this time is not looking to reinvent the wheel and dismiss all the hard work that had been conducted on the Trailways Master Plan was adopted. However, we do feel that it is good time to update it and review it as part of our typical 5-year update process that is required of us by the state within the comprehensive plan. Staff believes that this effort would be consistent with Code of Virginia requirements addressing transportation, the transportation element. Bicycle and pedestrian is considered an integral part of transportation system planning. It's a transportation mode and considered transportation alternatives under transportation demand management. This proposal would effectively remove separate standalone plan documents in favor of a one-stop shop. The bicycle and pedestrian plan is included in the transportation element update cycle. The goal is to ensure that the Trailways plan is reviewed and updated just like the rest of the comprehensive plan. What often happens with these standalone documents is they keep sitting on the shelf while this plan goes forward and gets updated every 5 years. We find that if we could put it all in one place, the entire thing could be focused on all at once, rather than having standalone documents that may become outdated. One of the goals obviously would be to shift implementation goals and objectives. Those are similar to any other goals and objectives that you would see within the comprehensive plan. It would just be specific to this particular element. We would like to focus greater on road frontage-based improvements as a means to expand the adopted recreational trails plan. I know when we had public hearings and public meetings regarding the trails plan, there was a good deal of resistance about the concept of greenways going through or near someone's backyard. Going along road corridors with road widening projects, they're more highly visible projects. They're more likely to be improved with road frontage improvements from a development or with a road widening project. We find that a road-based approach is more favorable to the off-road greenways, and we try to shift the plan as much as possible to focus on roadway trail system such as you see on Spotsylvania Parkway. The comprehensive plan is supported. The comprehensive plan supported bicycle and pedestrian improvements, help improve scoring for competitive transportation projects for funding requests. For instance, the VDOT Smart Scale program, one of the elements when you're looking to do a road widening project or build new bridges over I-95, for instance, they look at what are the bicycle and pedestrian improvements that are proposed with this project, and that helps in the scoring to, it's a competitive market for getting these funds. Bicycle and pedestrian actually helps that. So that's just one of the feathers in its cap. The plan also informs comprehensive plan reviews for public hearing cases. This is similar to Mr. Thompson's request. There's no changes in that or how we interpret the comprehensive plan. There's no substantive changes in that sense. It's the exact same way we've always treated it, just put it in a different location. We believe this is more efficient for staff to review and reference to one source rather than separate standalone plans. Secondly, for my last text slide this evening, regarding the corridor-specific approach, corridor-specific recommendations for sidewalks and multi-use paths and recreational trails is what we'd like you to consider this evening, rather than a zoning and use-based approach. This direction in the comprehensive plan would serve as a guide to ultimately update the design standards manual to be corridor specific over use and zoning specific. What the comprehensive plan can do is essentially assign tasks to staff to go ahead and update the design standards manual. If you're familiar with the zoning updates that we've been doing over the last few years, updating the zoning ordinance, that came from a direction out of the comprehensive plan. So this would really be a way to us to go ahead and pursue the design standards manual update. We focus on higher tier roads, at least as we are proposing currently, for these corridor approaches. Staff proposes bicycle pedestrian planning focus on VDOT functional classification roads, including minor collectors and higher. And I do have a map that was included in your packet, and I will show on the next slide, just to go over what those particular roads are that were identified as minor collector and higher. We would also establish a corridor and location approach in place of the current approach. I mentioned the corridors. Location-wise, we would be looking primarily at the primary development area, as well as the courthouse area, mixed-use area, which is part of the primary development area around here. And then we'd also be looking at the Lake Anna Courthouse Road corridor, where it's identified as mixed-use near the lake. Rural areas would focus more on shoulder improvements. These are things that have been advocated for in the county's thoroughfare plan for years as it is. There really are no changes in the rural areas from that perspective in terms of recommended road improvements. The county's thoroughfare plan has identified shoulder improvements since at least the 2008, maybe the 2002 comprehensive plan. Rural roads tend to focus on straighter alignments, getting rid of hard curves, wider shoulders, as well as wider travel lanes. Recommended corridor-specific use over zoning-specific revisions to Article 5 of the Design Standards Manual concerning bicycle pedestrian. The comp plan goal sets the stage, like I said earlier, for a Design Standards Manual update. And what we hope to do with all of this is to reduce or remove the sidewalk to nowhere argument in place of an established plan that will admittedly take time to implement, but we can literally focus on these corridors and say, yes, this corridor is planned and is developing for bike ped infrastructure, rather than having random uses without a plan, that just because they happen to be zoned or the use happens to be a certain way, they're required to do frontage improvement that truly may go to nowhere in the long term. Getting back to the focus on geography and the specific road corridors, this is a map that we created for your consideration. The roads highlighted in orangey yellow here are roads that have been classified as minor collector or higher tier roads by VDOT as of 2014, which is their most recent update on the functional classifications. What we would be potentially looking to do is amend the design standards and incorporate a map similar to this in the comprehensive plan that would identify bicycle and pedestrian type of improvements along these corridors. They tend to be the major corridors in the county, and again, limited to areas within the primary development boundary. And then also for your consideration, this mixed-use village area that's right along the Route 208 corridor near Lake Anna. That since the early 90s has been targeted as a type of tourism village and has been slow to develop, but it's been identified for those type of developments for a number of years. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have and welcome your feedback. Thank you.
Are there any questions? I have one. Go back to the slide on the quarters. Go back. Yeah, the map.
The map?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. There you have Mine Road, and I'm familiar with that because I live there.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. And if that destination would come up and you say, okay, you have to provide for sidewalks, or you would have to provide for bike trails and whatever, then that would cut down on the property, correct?
Yeah, ultimately with a road widening project, or, yes, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
okay.
additional right-of-way that ultimately is constructed, yes.
Okay. And then, so therefore you've taken that property, whomever, maybe be VDOT or whomever, and then you've got a setback that has to be met.
Correct.
So that property owner is going to lose quite a bit of property there, am I correct?
Yes and no. I would say back in 2007, the county, there are a number of more recently constructed homes along the Mine Road corridor that are very close to Mine Road. The county adopted a setback rule that based the setback on the future right-of-way line of a planned road improvement. Those future right-of-way lines, as per VDOT requirements, would require bicycle pedestrian as part of those widening projects. So these setbacks, at least going forward, are based on the future right-of-way line. So from that sense, yes, ultimately, a wider road, the sidewalks associated with it, that's more frontage. There's no doubt, I mean, there's no denying that. I would say roads like Mine Road have been identified in the thoroughfare plan, I
That's right.
believe, with right-of-ways that would accommodate bicycle pedestrian as part of the road widening project. And it's really part of the ultimate plan of development. In the case of Mine Road, from the Route 1 corridor to Lansdowne, Mine Road has been adopted as a 4-lane divided section road. And beyond that, it's identified down to the benchmark area as a 2-lane improvement, which would essentially be wider travel lanes, still 2 lanes. But yes, inevitably, there's going to be additional land.
Okay. So again, you're on Mine Road and you're going to take, to widen the road, the property, that, to do that. And then you're going to increase that by taking, by having bicycle lanes or sidewalks. Am I correct?
That would be part of the widening project. One thing I would say is there's a difference between if we're talking about a VDOT widening project, which we're talking about a full corridor, and someone that's coming in with a private development proposal, which we're pursuing a frontage improvement as part of the development. And that's more to our design standards manual comments that I've been talking about. Yeah, inevitably, that's exactly what would happen.
Yes. And a lot of the homes, like mine, were built quite a while ago, 50 years ago. Nice homes there. But however, if you're going to have a bicycle riding across your front porch, it's not going to be so attractive. And so VDOT would take care of purchasing this right away for all of this, if that was to happen. If it was to go with a 4-lane road with bicycle lanes and whatever.
Yes.
That's correct, for a roadway widening project, yes.
Now, regardless of whether I put this on a map or not, I mean, this is also a question for the thoroughfare plan and our transportation improvements in general. This focus is on bicycle pedestrian specifically, but I'll tell you, our
Yeah, but
county
it's going
still-
hand in hand. You're
They
going
they do
side
go,
by
they do
side.
go hand in hand, but,
Absolutely.
you know, at the end of the day, the right-of-ways that I advocated for in the county's thoroughfare plan for road widening, which is capacity improvement and moving traffic better, include right-of-way for bicycle pedestrian. So, you know, there's going to be, whether it be 4-lane divided or not, there's going to be additional right-of-way that's necessary. Now, the question is, how quickly can that be implemented? Is this happening tomorrow? It may take 10, 15, 20 years, you know, at the rate of how quickly these things happen. We certainly don't have dedicated funding for bicycle pedestrian focused, you know, projects solely. They tend to come with either frontage improvements with a development or with an entire road widening project. I haven't seen anything else since I've been here.
I will work with you on that and VDOT also, because as I stated, these homes were purchased quite a while ago, and no provision was made for that to happen. Believe me, yes, it's needed. However, I don't know if it's needed with bike and pedestrian sidewalks all along that area.
Okay.
And I have a concern that, okay, if you would come along and VDOT would say, but we have to take your property, so much of your property right away, okay? And then what's there left, you can't do anything with, because the setbacks that's required, by the county and whatever that we have to do. And so we have to take all of that into consideration, especially for homeowners. And so we need to meet on that and talk about that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, we presented this map to you this evening, just, based on focusing on major corridors and trying to connect the county together in these areas. But certainly there's, the type of improvement, I'm not saying that it has to be the type of improvement, the corridors that have been targeted, can be subject to discussion. This is kind of a first go at it. We're looking at tiers of roads at this point, and, these were all identified by VDOT as minor collectors and higher. But certainly that's worthy to discussion. From what I'm hoping to get from Planning Commission this evening is just even a sense of whether a corridor-based approach focused on the primary development boundary seems like a more favorable option than saying, due to your zoning or your land use, you have to do a specific type of improvement, regardless of whether it makes sense or fits within a larger network or not. That's my goal.
If you please, Chair, I'd just like to make a comment. You made a statement about they would take your land to widen the road or put in sidewalks. What are you going to do with it? Just so everybody knows, the value of your land is what VDOT says your land is worth, not what you say it's worth. I've been down this road, and they can belittle the property value as much as they seem fit. Thank you.
And to add to that, he's exactly correct. That's why I'm saying that the property owner could be really losing. Because it's what VDOT says it's worth. And, well, you can stay there, and like I stated, a bicycle running across your front porch almost. And, these things have to be taken into consideration.
The value of the land, that's a policy question above my pay grade and probably above the county specifically on how the land is paid for. But what I would say is, what the other option is do nothing option, where I guess we just don't widen the road corridors. What is the other option? I'm not sure.
That's the reason I want to meet with you, is because you're saying it's beyond local government. Well, okay, I can't sit back and say, oh, I'll just let that go. Then bang, it happens.
I understand.
I might be too old to look at it, but however, I have family. And I feel that those things have to be taken care of.
It sounds like a state policy in terms of how land is assessed and valued, for what it's worth in a situation where a road widening project is being proposed. And we could certainly, I can get our transportation staff involved. This is part of the transportation element. They'd probably be able to speak to that more intelligently than I would.
Okay. Well, you call me, and so that we can, set that up, because sometimes we go and we put something in a comprehensive plan or whatever, and we forget the little details that happen to be big details to property owners, and that's the reason I certainly want to look at that to see. Okay. Any other comments, Mr.? Yes.
Jake, I was kind of wondering, this kind of came up in the special use permit for Fredericksburg Christian School, this East Coast Greenway.
Yep.
Can you refresh my memory on what exactly, is that an organization, a state organization? Who decides where that East Coast Greenway goes? Because we were talking about state projects and funding and expanding roads. That's one thing. I'm more curious about looking at where that Greenway goes and potential rezonings or other special use permits. and having those sidewalk trails to nowhere.
I've thought about the East Coast Greenway in some good, some depth. I attended the East Coast Greenway initially appeared on the regional radar at the FAMPO Regional Bicycle Pedestrian Planning Effort. There's a regional planning effort. To getting to an earlier point this evening about regional collaboration, what happens at your borders. That's one example of it, is what occurs at a regional level with FAMPO. Back, I think it was around 2012 possibly, as part of the regional update, the East Coast Greenway was brought in as a stakeholder. They were looking at identifying a route at the time, and they worked with the regional representatives to establish a corridor, generally following an existing corridor that I believe is a nationally designated corridor called the US Bike Route 1 corridor. And it was adopted regionally as part of our region's trail plan. The East Coast Greenway actually fits into a national system that extends from Maine to Florida. They're essentially looking to do a multi-use path, bike path, further east of the Appalachian Trail, which is more more of a walking, hiking. But it's a private organization that has a vision to have this trail infrastructure developed, and they work with localities to have it mapped. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to coming forward with projects and pursuing right-of-way, it basically is an expectation of the local governments to implement their vision. That's how that plan has worked out. I could tell you annually there are state meetings that are held where different localities are invited to attend and basically provide updates on what has each locality been doing to implement the East Coast Greenway. This past year, I did advise, because the FAMPO group was updating their regional bike ped plan, and an East Coast Greenway member was present. I advised the East Coast Greenway at that time that it may be in their best interests, because it's really their vision and their plan, to make their pitch to local boards and garner greater buy-in from local communities. Within Virginia, there's a lot of development going on in the urban areas of Richmond, Northern Virginia. There's actually a spur that goes out into the Virginia Beach area as well. So in more heavily urbanized areas, I think Prince William County into the north, they are seeing some fairly significant implementation of the East Coast Greenway. But in rural and semi-rural areas where, there are a lot of other, there may not be as many funds available, there may be more, obviously there's population growth on infrastructure that wasn't necessarily built for it. There's a lot of catch-up that has to be done and other priorities. The East Coast Greenway, Spotsylvania County, Caroline County, we've had, frankly, it's been a challenge to implement it. But yes, it's not. It's a regionally adopted road corridor that ultimately is based in a private organization.
I would just like to look at that again from the perspective of requiring. I think we require them to actually pave. I'm okay with dedicating. You're shaking your head no, so is that not required?
This gets to the design standards manual. At minimum, they would have been required to do a sidewalk.
Okay.
The design standards manual allows a trail in lieu of a sidewalk option where appropriate. And in this situation, because we had that corridor as part of our adopted plans, we asked, as part of a comprehensive plan review, we did not require it because, ultimately, even at the board public hearing, the board wiped that away,
Okay.
the trail. It was not a requirement, it was a request trying to implement a plan.
Okay.
That's basically what it was. And they had agreed to do it, but it ultimately failed at public hearing.
So my only concern is the sidewalks to nowhere. I'm okay with dedicating for, hey, this potentially comes forward and funds become, and this happens. I'm okay with that. I just knew that as an example of one of those places where I felt we were going to require something. But if the board wiped it off, then that's it. However, from a corridor perspective, I'm not going to speak for the commission, obviously, but I'm for that idea. I like where you're going with this. I like the implementation better because, yeah, the sidewalks to nowhere kind of drive me nuts, especially in places where I believe there's probably never going to be, you really never want people walking or riding a bike because of just the topo of the land, just because of the area. So I like where we're going with that.
Thank you. I think we have to pick and choose on that also. Lee's Park, they have the bicycle path, the trail, and all of that takes place of the sidewalks. And it's all right there together, and it's a lovely plan, and it's a good plan, and it works. But it's not going to work everywhere. And so, therefore, I think we have to take that. Because thank you for about the requirements. You know, if we come up with many more requirements, we can't even have roads as they should be. We can't even have transportation issues addressed because no money, no funds. And I mean, we just cannot keep on adding on without trying to do something for the transportation funds. So I'm certainly saying that let's don't put any more requirements on.
What I'd like to do is make this fit within the thoroughfare plan, which is the county's road plan. And, you know, I could tell you VDOT's going to require some sort of bicycle pedestrian element as part of those road improvements. Unless they're resurfacing a road, typically, you know, if we're talking about a widening project, you're going to see some sort of bicycle pedestrian as part of that. And it's like I said earlier in the presentation, one of the things that we're seeing with these smart scale applications for competitive, you know, road funds for widening projects is, do you have a bicycle pedestrian element of this? And that's part of their scoring. These projects are scored less favorably without them, frankly. So things like Harrison Road, the Harrison Road Bridge, Harrison Road, you know, we've looked at Harrison Road as a viable alternative to the Virginia Central Rail Trail to link the city of Fredericksburg portion to Salem Church Road. It's more highly visible. It's alongside of the road. You're not off-road in the back of people's yards or going through Twin Springs subdivision. You don't have to do a new bicycle pedestrian bridge over 95 or Tunnel 95. You have Harrison Road Bridge, which is already planned for widening anyway. So we are trying to line that up with our transportation plan. And I think that's probably the most favorable way to do it. So there's at least some consistency and parity between these road widenings and what we ultimately see on the ground. I could tell you, like Route 17 corridor, I've talked to VDOT, they already have their design plans for the Route 17 include a shared use path and a sidewalk on that. That's part of their plans for that widening project. And they have right of way there, obviously. That's not a situation like Mine Road. And that's why roads like Mine Road, which are, you know, heavily constricted, I mean, it's a viable discussion, you know, whether that's appropriate or not for this plan. You know, if we should consider revising it or making some alternative recommendations, shoulder improvements or something like that, we can certainly discuss that.
And I agree that it's needed because where you allow subdivisions and then you have, from that, you have commercial just not too far away, the pedestrians, they walk all the time along Mine Road to get to work and wherever they need to go. And the only way that they can do that is through people's yards. And that's okay that they walk on my yard. They're going to work. But however, that's not the ideal. But it's some way that we have to work with that in order to satisfy the property owner.
Yeah.
And, you know, and what's needed in those areas. And that's the reason I would like you to work more on that.
Sure.
One-on-one. Yes, Wanda?
I just wanted to add one item. We're not proposing to add new regulation here. We already have requirements for sidewalks. What we're proposing to do is shift the approach that we take to when those are required. Our approach that we're proposing is to say, for example, along Route 1 between point A and point B, sidewalks are necessary and appropriate. So any new development that comes in that segment would provide sidewalks. Right now, the way it is, industrial properties are not required to provide sidewalks. And we have scattered industrial zone properties along Route 1, so that's where you end up with a situation where a commercial property will come in, put in a sidewalk, and then when the industrial one develops next to it, they don't have to put in a sidewalk, and then the next one's commercial. So then you end up with those segments that don't match up. So rather than taking an approach where you're looking at what is the use or what is the zoning, it's new development within a corridor between point A and point B, and we believe sidewalks are important for safe pedestrian passage in these areas. So really it's what we're proposing is trying to figure out which road segments are the ones where we expect to see the sidewalks in the future for new development that comes along.
All right, yes.
I think the corridor approach is a good fit, because, you know, I don't want sidewalks, I don't want that piecemeal, you know, sidewalks. It's our best chance of having the sidewalks be used effectively and efficiently is to have a corridor approach. I like that. I like that idea.
The one thing I would want to reiterate too, when it comes to implementation, I did say it takes time. So there are instances where it may look like it's a sidewalk to nowhere, but if we have a corridor approach, there's a plan that it is not a sidewalk to nowhere. It just, this particular frontage has been developed this year, in a couple of years. A good area that I can reference actually where we've seen these little segmented pieces all come together is at the corner of Route 1 and Spotsylvania Parkway, where you have a auto zone that was constructed a couple of years ago. Now, right next to that, there's a oil change business that's going in, and that'll include a sidewalk. There's an existing pharmacy there, and we have a rezoning now on the other side of the auto zone going further north that ultimately has, within a matter of a couple of years, really built that whole section out. So it does take time, but, you know, corridor-specific approach helps so we don't have, like Wanda had said, these random like industrials in the middle of commercial that just cut everything off. And then it results in essentially cutting across properties, and so.
Anyone else? All right, so what do you?
I think we
from
have
us?
pretty good direction on the corridors.
Yes, we are just seeking, big picture, if you like the approach of shifting to a corridor approach. This will be part of the comprehensive plan update, and I think this is an element that will be important to get public input on as well in terms of which are the appropriate corridors ultimately. We've proposed just starting out with the ones that Jacob's presented on the map, but some segments in there may come off the map. Other segments of roads may be added to the map ultimately, so I think public input will be important as we develop this.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh, the other thing, actually taking that standalone document and merging into the comprehensive plan, is that something that seems logical to the planning commission?
Now, you merge it, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, that's, okay.
There's no standalone plans that get forgotten somewhere that
Oh,
way.
definitely. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Have a good evening.
That's all on the work session, is that correct, Ms. Barish? That's correct. All right. Do we have any new business to come before the board, the commission? No? All right, we'll move on. And at this time, we have public comment. And Mrs. Parrish, will you present the procedure?
The procedure is similar to what I noted for the public hearing. If you're interested in speaking on an item that was not part of tonight's public hearing, you may do so. You have 3 minutes as an individual. Please state your name and either your address or your voting district. If you know, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Paulette, has anyone signed up?
Yes, ma'am.
Please continue with the list, please.
I have Dave Hammond, followed by Sean Fogarty.
Picture's worth 1,000 words. So.
Always.
Floor computer, please.
Started. Thank you. My name is Dave Hammond, live in the Livingston District. I'm speaking for myself tonight. Topic's a familiar one for you, cadmium. And there's a nagging question I want to talk to you that's sort of been gnawing at me for a long time. S-Power's cadmium telluride panel integrity safety document states the following. The panel's thin layer of cadmium telluride is encapsulated between two sheets of glass and sealed with an industrial laminate. However, if you look at the reference document, you'll see that the panels only contain a single sheet of plastic. So there are two sheets of glass. The thin film of cadmium telluride is there, but it's all above a single sheet of plastic. So the nagging question I've got is, how is anything encapsulated above a single sheet of plastic? The other types of panels do have two sheets of plastic, and the crystalline silicon is between the two sheets of plastic, and you can see how that could encapsulate something, contain it. So if you look at the picture, this is the picture I want to show you. It shows some old solar panels, and some obviously have been through some rough treatment and are folded over, bent over, folded in half. So the question is, is that encapsulation a real thing? So we've asked First Solar, the panel manufacturer, twice. So we've made two requests of First Solar to provide scientific data that demonstrates that the cadmium really is inside these mangled panels. So you take some of these panels in the picture, you analyze them and see, is all the cadmium that was there originally still there? Simple question, simple answer. Apparently, there's no data available, or they're not willing to share the data. So next page, please. So this is really the crux of this nagging question that I've been trying to get to. And the implication is critical. If, as Power describes it, cleanup of the panel is you're out cleaning up broken glass, so you got to wear gloves. That's it. And it's a big difference if you got pieces of glass laying all over this debris field from the storm, and they contain toxic material. You're either going to go out and pick up broken glass, or you're going to go out and find every piece of glass that has a toxic compound on it, and you got to clean it up thoroughly and efficiently. And it's a very different cleanup process. And that's what's bothering me. So, we can debate about leaching. I don't want to get into that tonight, but what's clear is if you don't go out and pick up those pieces of glass, eventually the cadmium is going to come out and it's going to go into our soil and our groundwater. So next page, the last page is the simplest solution is simply prohibit the use of these types of panels. In the box, Culpeper has addressed this. A recent...
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
Oh, that was quick. Okay.
You did give us a copy of your...
I have it, and the Culpeper thing is in there.
All right, thank you.
Sean Fogarty, followed by Richard Janelle.
John Fogarty, Livingston District. This evening, I'm providing the Planning Commission and planning staff our analysis of S-Power's 3 special use permits compliance with the county comprehensive plan. I dropped off copies to everyone, another 10 or 11 page document from us, but it's, I promise, the last one from me. This is submitted in accordance with Virginia Code 15.2/2232, which is requires this to be submitted with, evaluated with special use permits. We are requesting that this analysis that we've provided, similar to the conditions that we provided about a month ago, be considered to be included in Appendix A to the staff report for the special use permit for this S-Power plan that's going to be considered on December 5th. Our analysis that I put before you includes 15 provisions, contained in chapters 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 are the ones that we felt were most important. It also includes a copy of the county's future land use map, which is what I have displayed on the monitor there. As you can see, I've got the sites, the 3 sites for S-Power superimposed on top of the county's future land use plan. That plan's right out of the comprehensive plan. As you can see from that, the proposal would remove the largest agriculture and forestal land use tract in the county and is inconsistent with the future land use map. The site would cover an area more than twice as large as the county's entire agricultural forestal district, which is about 2,800 acres right now. It also directly conflicts with the desire to preserve the rural character of the county by placing a 3,500 acre industrial utility site in agricultural zone land. I don't know how easy you can see it, but the very light green color on there is ag forestal. The little bit darker green is all the rural, which is obviously consists of most of the county. But that lighter color is supposed to be ag forestal. That tract there would be the biggest in the whole county, and we'd be putting this plant right on top of that land. Our analysis concludes that the proposed special use is not compatible with other land uses in that area of the county and is not in accordance with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Richard Janelle, followed by Judith Janelle.
Good evening. I'm Richard Janelle, Livingston District. And my comments, too, relate to the pending special use permit for the solar facility. So we believe strongly that the SUP conditions must require the applicants to provide 24/7 specialized fire detection and firefighting capability on sites A and B and C. And here's why. The 3 sites combined are the size of the city of Fredericksburg. There are approximately 27 homes on the periphery of the sites. Think about that a minute. So now all of a sudden, over a period of, let's say, a year or 2, you're going to have 3,500 acres that now have infrastructure that requires firefighting support. So do we think we have enough firefighting capability in the local area around there to cover that? Probably not. Likely also we don't have the kind of specialized firefighting capability that would be needed to fight a fire on a solar facility. And it does require some special equipment. Furthermore, the closest firefighting units are Station 7 at the intersection of Brock and Orange Plank Roads, Station 9 in Belmont, and Station 2 in Brokenburg. Station 7 is 5 miles from the closest entrance to Site A. Station 9 is 5.5 miles from Site B, and Station 2 is 6.5 miles from Site C. According to an article in Forbes magazine, September 6, 2017 edition, entitled "The Terrifying Physics of How Wildfires Spread So Fast," wildfires travel at approximately 14 miles per hour, faster if driven by wind or terrain upslope. That equates to approximately 1 mile every 4 minutes a wildfire will travel. Given the distances firefighting units must travel on narrow, curvy roads to reach the sites, if a wildfire were to start anywhere within Site A, B, or C, it would reach residences on the periphery of the sites before firefighting units could arrive on the scene. Lack of a 24/7 fire detection reporting, necessity of the fire vehicles to access the sites through locked gates that must be unlocked, and narrow gravel and dirt roads within the solar panel complex will further delay firefighter response. The situation is dangerous now, and it will become more so as the sites are developed and 1.8 million solar panels are installed. And the next speaker will explain why.
Judith Janelle, followed by Mike Michalowsko.
I'm Judith Janelle from the Livingston District, continuing on the S-Power solar farm. The sites are covered with thousands of tons of flammable clear-cut debris and new growth underbrush. Once the land's cleared, native field grasses will be planted to prevent soil erosion. This material provides abundant fuel for wildfires, particularly in the hot, dry summer months. Sources of ignition, such as sparks, hot exhaust pipes from vehicles and equipment, welding, and open flame work, discarded cigarettes, electrical arcing from high power lines, shortage of flammable fuel or storage of flammable fuels on site, and lightning strikes will dramatically increase the probability of the wildfires on the sites. Tons of I-beam steel supports for the solar panel arrays will also be huge lightning attractors. The roads within the sites will not be wide enough and have the weight-bearing capability to support large, heavy firefighting vehicles. What they have stated in their submission to the county is that the roads through the arrays will just be the underbrush and so forth. So they will not be rock, gravel, whatever, to sustain firefighting vehicles. The applicant's emergency response plan, section 4.42 states, access vehicles consist of unimproved, access aisles, consist of unimproved native material and are not suitable for all emergency service vehicles. To avoid electrical shock, the commonly used firefighting agents, such as water or chemical retardants, cannot be used to extinguish wildfires under or near the solar modules, or inverters. So when asked what you fight the fire with, they say the special foam that you use for electrical fires. So this is very different than the way that the county normally fights a fire. Specialized firefighting equipment must be immediately available 24/7 to prevent fires from extending beyond the sites to residential areas. If such equipment does not exist, the SUP application should not be approved. It is not a matter of if, but when a wildfire event will happen on the solar field sites. Failure to require the applicants to provide 24/7 specialized fire detection and firefighting capability designed to be used under or near solar panels and inverters will put nearby residents at an elevated risk of loss of life or serious injury and property damage from the wildfires. So we think that the firefighting capability, the plan, needs to really be worked out before it's even considered to be approved.
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
Thank you.
Mike Michalowsko, followed by Russ Mueller, who is representing a group.
I had a picture that I had submitted. Thank you. My name is Mike Michalowsko. I'm a resident of the Livingston District, and I'm speaking for myself. I'm talking about the S-Power solar farm, and in particular, traffic congestion. S-Power has stated that the major artery for construction vehicles for their entrances 1 and 2 will be along Orange Plank Road. They have not submitted a traffic mitigation plan, and they have made some modest proposals for alleviating traffic along that road, carpooling, restricting vehicles during business hours, and even the suggestion that they could put a roundabout or assist in a roundabout at the historic intersection of Orange Plank and Brock Roads. But that would occur 12 months after the completion of the construction, which makes no sense for alleviating traffic congestion. What I'm proposing, and it's shown here on the monitor and it's on the second page of my written submission, is an alternate route. Basically, all construction traffic and vehicles would come along Route 3, primarily from I-95, go to Route 20, come down Route 20 to Goldale Road, and then along Goldale back to Orange Plank to entrances 1 and 2. This would have several advantages. First of all, it would alleviate burdening Orange Plank Road, which is already a heavily burdened two-lane road. It would remove entirely this whole nonsense of thinking about putting a roundabout on the historic intersection of Orange Plank and Brock Road, which is owned by the National Park Service and would actually literally require an act of Congress to do. And third, it would reduce the distance that construction vehicles would travel along a narrow road from approximately 8 miles, which is shown in the red along Orange Plank, to less than 5 miles along Golddale, and then to Orange Plank to these two entrances. I would like all of these, I would like this proposal put into the special use permit, and additionally would state that any requirements for improvements or repair to the roads used by these vehicles be borne by the applicant S-Power, and that S-Power be prohibited from using any private residences or developments for access to any of the entries or exits of their properties. I would like all of those items placed in the special use permit for the S-Power projects. Thank you.
Russ Mueller, followed by Vivian Stanley.
Good evening. My name is Russ Mueller. I reside in the Livingston District, and I'll put an exclamation point on all the points made previously. On behalf of our concerned citizens group in the strongest terms, I want to reiterate that the conditions we are demanding be included in the S-Power SUP have been determined on good authority to meet the Virginia state legal test for reasonableness. Also, the risks we have scientifically documented must be adequately mitigated or have no choice but to oppose its approval, because the resulting harm will be in clear violation of the county zoning code that protects citizens and the environment against adverse consequences. Now, beyond the build-out risks of this precedent-setting, environmentally sensitive monstrosity, I would hope before voting on the project, you would also consider the totality of the material adverse changes that will be made to the historic and substantially rural character of this part of Spotsylvania County, which is why I'm here. Also, the bottom line of our financial analysis, although preliminary, makes it pretty clear county taxpayers will wind up subsidizing this S-Power project. This is particularly evident given that the legally binding basis is totally suspect as to how S-Power is going to be allowed to make the so-called $600,000 payments designed to offset the declining tax revenues resulting from this project. To date, S-Power has only made minimal changes to the original GDP, and the lack of detail is glaring. Forging ahead to approve this faulty project without including adequate mitigation would be pure folly and result in permanent damages and harm. We're looking to each of you to rectify the severe shortcomings of the GDP and put the health and safety of citizens first, put the integrity of our lakes, waterways, environment above potential empty promises and temporary givebacks. Issues relating to wells and county water, I would like to think that S-Power has listened to our concerns, and the GeoSeer hydrology report conclusions that the aquifer is at risk from the collapse from the extraction of water at industrial levels from the 3+ wells they've already drilled there. I say that because that may be the case because of their own hydrology and drilling studies that show the potential negative effects on neighboring wells and springs could extend out to 4,500 feet, 15 football fields. The need for treatment of well water contaminated by arsenic and cyanide before it is used, and the lack of a determination for the level of the water table below which the aquifer would collapse, and consequently, the undetermined gallons per day extraction that would cause such a collapse. It should be clear to this commission S-Power will use well water for construction, notwithstanding their intent to gain access to county water. A hookup to county water through Fawn Lake would likely take until early summer at best, and the full completion of the proposed pump and pipe upgrade to the system would likely take until the end of the year 2019. Even if the county delays project construction until county water is available, we have additional concerns, proposals for mitigation. Ensure that the pressure put on the water system by S-Power will not be injurious to the communities depending on county water. These conditions are in our September 25th documents, and it also makes clear that the company should be held responsible financially for the cost of any water improvements they have requested. Also, I reiterate our demand that the comprehensive plan be amended to limit the amount of Spotsylvania County dedicated to solar and put these things at least 30, 40 miles away from each other before we're all glassed over in this county by solar panels. Thank you very much for your kind consideration, and please have county staff include our conditions before the report is written. Thank you.
Vivian Stanley, followed by Michael Obier.
Good evening. Every time I come here, I try to give you all the reasons why you should not approve the special use permit for S-Power.
Would you please state your name and
I'm
your
sorry.
voting district?
Vivian Stanley, Livingston District. Today, I will tell you all the reasons why you should approve the special use permit. The first reason is doggone. There are no good reasons why you should do this. They produce toxins, cancer, not even one good reason. It's like Mrs. Reagan said, just say no. So, in a case like that, I will give you all the ways that Spotsylvania County will profit from the solar monster. Strange, but Spotsy will not profit at all. Only S-Power, who is owned by a Canadian multi-billion-dollar company, will make any money off this project. The only thing that would be attributed to Spotsy are the slow death of every one of the 4,000 people that live on the adjacent properties of the proposed site. I have it on 3 sides of my property. It might not take me 35 years to get cancer, will it? At this point in time, I can only repeat something that I said to you months ago. Never impose on others that which you do not want for yourself. Vote no to the special permit. Don't make adjustments to it. It's worthless. Vote no. Thank you.
Michael Obier, followed by Kevin McCarthy.
My name is Michael Obier. I live at 11201 Chancellor Meadows Lane, ground zero for the solar project. The GDP proposed with S-Power should not and is not acceptable. The proposed boundary lines, the drawings show my house is approximately 109 foot from the solar field. That is incorrect, and I brought this up to Patrick White with no concerns. The GDP gives no setback distances on any property on Chancellor Meadows Lane that we've been asking for over 9 months. Nothing from S-Power whatsoever. We will not accept the landscape berm design 1 or 2, because nobody knows what that is. Setbacks are be the same for all Spotsylvania County taxpayers for their homes or the adjoining solar site. There are no distances for settlement ponds that are on the drawings. They don't say if they're behind the berms, and they should not be exposed to homeowners. There is nothing to be said about the crystal panels that the Aspire is going to be using on certain parts of the solar field. There are 2 different types of panels they're using, but they don't say where they're going to use them at and why they're going to use them in certain conditions. What they had in Culpeper, they're using the crystal panels, so the larger setbacks. We could probably save up to 300 acres of land if they use the crystal panels. No panels should be seen from any Spotsylvania taxpayers' homes, and if 2-story homes with covered decks, what's going to be the outline for those? Are you going to sit up on your deck and watch the solar panels move during the day? We don't know. They haven't described any of that regulations yet either. The solar project is detrimental to my health, safety, and welfare, to my family, my friends, and all Spotsylvania County residents. Thank you.
Kevin McCarthy, followed by Alfred King.
Thank you. My name is Kevin McCarthy. I reside in the Livingston District. I just want to add a very brief comment to a presentation Mr. Fogarty made a few minutes ago. When you look at the size of the facility and the amount of the forested lands that are called for in the county's land use map, that's not only a significant chunk of that type of zone area, but that is about 20% of the Livingston district. I'll research that and get you an exact number, but that's a preposterous idea to me, to take that much land of our district and turn it from forested area into a solar field. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Mr. King.
Alfred King, the Livingston District. I heard the young lady speak a couple of people ago, and she urged that you turn down the application. I am as interested as she is in not having a solar farm. But I don't know if all of you read the editorial in today's Freelance Star. If you just turn down the application as it is submitted, there is no doubt whatsoever that the applicant, S-Power, is going to go to court, and they'll win in court. So that just a sheer no vote on their application is an invitation to disaster. What we have to do, and it's been spelled out pretty clearly over the last few months, is have a special use permit that has every conceivable requirement for health and safety of the county and its residents. And I am concerned that we will have only 1 week from the time that the special use permit is printed, published, to evaluate it and provide you, the commissioners, with our recommendations as to how that can be tightened. This rush to judgment is going to cause the serious problems in the county. I know we have to, as a county, provide them an answer by February or March. The answer should be initially no, but we're working on the special use permit. There's no way I can see that we're going to analyze a special use permit submitted 1 week before your next meeting. It's going to require detailed analysis, detailed recommendations, and our position is going to be, unless you make these required changes, you've got to deny the permit. So in summary, the emphasis has to be on the special use permit, and I don't see how we're going to analyze it in the limited time available. So I'd urge you as a commission to figure out how we can get more time to analyze the SUP when it comes out. Thank you.
Anyone else sign up? Paulette. Is there anyone here that has not signed up that would like to speak? Okay, seeing no one rise. Okay, we'll close the public comment time. Is that all we have on it? Then do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All those in favor, make it known by saying aye. Aye.